One of the voices I love hearing talk about the NBA and all sports, really, is Chris Broussard, who is with FS1. You see him with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp on Undisputed at times. And the show, and Chris, we appreciate you joining us. I've had a chance to hear you with Rob Parker here on our airwaves with The Odd Couple, which started recently. Are you enjoying doing that?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Obviously I've been a reporter for 2 decades, and now to be able to share my opinions, my views, my analysis, that's been great. It's kind of like moving up from a beat writer to a columnist at a newspaper, and then the opportunity also to talk other sports. People kind of think of me as a basketball guy, with good reason, because that's been what I've covered. But, growing up, football was my favorite sport. And I played baseball in high school and football and basketball. So I love all 3 of the big sports. And so it's great to be able to talk about all of them.
Yeah, well, it's a good show, and you and Rob make a good team, and we'll be continuing to listen for it. Tonight, though, on our air, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers with their season opener. That's been great for us the last few years, but that number 23 guy's over in Los Angeles now. And I'm wondering, Chris, like the over-under in Vegas for wins for the Cavs this year is 30.5. If I had to ask you right now, would you take the over? Do you think they're going to win more than that or less than that? What do you think of this new version, LeBron-less version of the Cavaliers?
I would probably take the over barely, maybe 31, 32, 33 wins. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they'll be in the hunt, with a week or 2 left that they'll have a chance. I think they'll be, definitely securely in the lottery. So I don't expect much from this team. First of all, that's certainly what's best for them going forward, is not to be just mediocre and hanging on, to that 8th or 9th spot in the Eastern Conference. So get some young kids in here and rebuild. If you look at the history of LeBron leaving teams, from Cleveland the first time to Miami the second time, his first time leaving them, these teams struggle, in part mainly because LeBron is so great, but secondly because the teams that he's on are built around him, and he is kind of the system. So now you've got players that don't necessarily fit together without LeBron there, and they're going to be playing in a whole different system that may not cater to their strengths. I'm surprised that they have, I think they're going to need to look to trade Kevin Love at some point, let him go on to a better team where he can, still try to play for, if not championships, certainly deep runs in the playoffs. I think that'll eventually be the case, this notion that you're going to rebuild around him and be a playoff team. I just think it's foolishness. I don't think it's happening. I don't know. It's hard to tell if he's the player he was in Minnesota before he joined the Cavaliers. Obviously, he was putting up huge numbers in Minnesota, and then, but he wasn't getting teams to the playoffs. But that was a much tougher Western Conference than the East is right now. So if he can be that player, I guess you could hold out some hope, but he's been so different the last several years. The league is so different now in terms of style of play. I just don't see it happening. So I do think eventually Kevin Love will be sent elsewhere.
So LeBron goes out west and plays for a Laker team. Their over-under, by the way, is 48.5. How relevant do the Lakers become in the Western Conference this year? Do they have any chance of threatening Golden State, even Houston? How many teams are better in the West, in your mind, than the Lakers, even with LeBron?
Well, look, it's Golden State number 1, Houston number 2, and then there's a group of, 5, 6 teams that are right stacked together. I mean, you got the Lakers, Oklahoma City, Minnesota. They're probably dropping off because of the Jimmy Butler situation. New Orleans should be a pretty good team. Portland, Denver, Utah. Yep. I mean, the West is a different animal. So I think the Lakers could finish, as high as 3rd or as low as 6th or 7th. I think they'll definitely make the playoffs. My personal prediction has been 53 wins and LeBron's the MVP. I believe he really wants this MVP award. He would be the deepest into a player's career that anyone's ever won the MVP. 16th year. Right now it's Karl Malone's 14th year. it would be LeBron's 5th MVP with tying with Michael Jordan. I think he really wants that. He may not come out and say it, but I think he's shooting for that. And to get that, they're going to have to be at 50 wins or better, unless he just puts up some ridiculous numbers and performances. So that's one reason I think that they'll have a strong regular season. I think LeBron is going to kind of take this regular season a lot more seriously and try to win games a lot more than he did in Cleveland during the regular season, where you knew it didn't matter, your seeding didn't matter. It was all about the finals in June. Now it's not all about the finals. I mean, again, he may not admit it, but they're not getting to the finals. Yep. And he probably knows it. He knows it deep down inside. So now you're playing for a great regular season and then go as deep as you can in the playoffs.
Visiting with Chris Broussard, Fox Sports. You hear him right here on 105.7 The Zone, 7 o'clock weeknights with Rob Parker, The Odd Couple. Before I let you go, you mentioned Jimmy Butler there, Chris. What do you make of that whole situation, the bizarre practice last week with the Timberwolves? When did Jimmy Butler become a guy that is that powerful?
That's a good point, because I was talking to an executive yesterday, and he said, look, Jimmy Butler's a very good player, great player, but he's not what he's doing. You need to be a LeBron James, a Kevin Durant, somebody like that, James Harden even, to be doing what he's doing. Yeah. He's not an MVP, and he's not going to be an MVP. He's not going to lead a team as the number one guy to a championship. I think on the one hand, I give Jimmy credit. He's doing the Timberwolves a favor by letting them know this early, I will not re-sign with you. Trade me. So they can at least get something for him rather than thinking it's all good and then he leaves them in July and they're left with nothing for him. So that's fine. I have no problem with him wanting to go elsewhere. However, the way he's doing it is not right. And don't tell me it's all about winning when you're looking to leave Karl Anthony Towns, who's one of the best big men in the league, not even one of the best young big men, one of the best big men, period, and Andrew Wiggins, who for all his warts is a really good third option. You've got some good role players. Jeff Teague. I mean, if everything was fine in Minnesota, they could be fighting for that third seed that I mentioned in the Western Conference. They're that good, and they can have a good year. But don't tell me it's about winning when you want to leave all that to go to Brooklyn or the Knicks or the Clippers or the Miami Heat even. Yeah. You're not winning there. I mean, maybe you could say, oh, well, maybe they'll get a big-time free agent with Jimmy next summer. Who knows? And Miami doesn't even have a chance to do that. So what it's really about is this. I mean, some of it's about money. He wanted them to extend him this summer and move around contracts and maybe get rid of people to give him more money. I don't blame them for not doing it. They're willing to give him the max this summer, I believe. But it's really about Jimmy wanting to be in a big glamour market. And that's his right. That's fine. But look at all the teams. They're not the winning teams. They're teams in New York or Los Angeles. He'll accept Miami because that's a glamour market. So that's really what it's about right now for Jimmy Butler. If it was just about winning, you'd have Philadelphia on your list. Yeah. I mean, he could go to Philadelphia, and that could be a team that could get to the finals and maybe do something once they get there. So that's really the situation in Minnesota.
Hey, Chris, this was a lot of fun. We appreciate it. Appreciate your expertise, and we'll be listening for you weeknights here on The Odd Couple. And thanks for taking a few minutes. We'll get back with you later in the season.
All right, guys, anytime.